Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. We are recommending use both, actually. Use Apple Podcasts and Spotify because lately Spotify's been a little quicker, and that one's on both platforms. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. I'm finding it, Greg. Don't worry. There you go. You got it first. Off the Floor is our Discord server. Link right here in the description. $2.99 per month. We're going to start doing something different. We just decided 3 minutes ago. We're going to start doing, if anybody watches, and I don't want to get into your political leanings or anything like that, but if anybody watches, say, Bill Maher or Jon Stewart, they do overtime, right? So they have a real show, and then the overtime, they move somewhere else. We're going to start doing overtime on the podcast, which we call it the fifth quarter. The Spo won't change his lineup stage show, whatever it is. We're going to do stage shows, which actually we call floor seats. So we're going to do those on off the floor after our podcast. Not every podcast, but some podcasts, so that we'll have somebody that you can yell at about the podcast that you just listened to. Seems pretty cool, right? Literally just decided this. This is how we make decisions at the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, link right here in the description. Subscribe for $2.99 per month. And now I'm late on it, but Prize Picks, use the code 5. Greg and I are going to do a show right after this about Game 6 of the Pacers-Knicks series. We'll be doing shows before every Stanley Cup Finals game. Not Greg, Alex Baumgartner and I, most likely, and also before every NBA Finals game. So use the code 5, F-I-V-E, get your $50, and win money. Have a good one. Today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Hi, welcome to Off the Floor. No, this isn't Off the Floor. Today's floor plan, I'm sorry, went a little long on the intro, so I apologize for that. Today's floor plan, I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the Five Reasons Sports. We've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. Check out all the recent episodes. Been putting out a lot of them, and I feel like some of you are missing some. Just a hunch. So go back. There's a lot of stuff that's timeless in there. It's going to be helpful for you as you prepare for the Heat's draft and also for free agency and also for what the Heat are going to do with their own rosters. So go back. Check our library. It's all there, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. I feel like I need to go to the refrigerator or something, or maybe under the sink and get a pail because we're going to be accused of carrying water here. We are. I know this is coming, right? Right. We're going to have Trilly putting us in Photoshops and all the rest of this, and as members of the Heat front office, we're just going to try to provide facts.
Yes,
This
is going to be a data-driven podcast. People aren't going to like it, but it's going to be data-driven in part. And thank you to the account on Twitter, NBA University. They put that out. I want to give them a shout out here.
Very good account. By the way, very good account. They deal in facts. I know we're not a fact-based society anymore, but this is facts, not faith. Okay, facts, not faith. And we're going to take a look at this chart that they went through, which is tax bills and team performance since 2012. Now, I'm not exactly sure, Greg, why 2012 was picked. The new CBA
wasn't it then? Because
it might have been
because the Heat lost in 2011. They came back in a shortened season and played on Christmas in Dallas. So that was because of a new CBA. So I feel like 2012 is like what we should consider the luxury tax era, I guess, is what they're going for. But again, I'm kind of connecting dots. Obviously, I didn't create the chart, but
I think that's correct, actually. So 2012, why did they pick that? That's probably the reason. Okay. So What the chart includes here, and we put this on Off the Floor, by the way, but I'll attach it when we promote the podcast on Twitter as well. Win percentage. This is for every team in the NBA. That's regular season win percentage. Playoff wins, championships, tax years, highest tax year. It's not really that relevant, but well, we could discuss it. It's not really that relevant. And total tax paid. Okay. Now you've pulled an Ethan special. You have an envelope, which you've written on the back of it. Envelopes can be used for anything. You don't need to use your phone. Just seriously, after you don't send in your monthly payment for something, just rip up the envelope and write some NBA statistics on it. Okay, so win percentage, playoff wins, championships, tax years, highest tax year, total tax paid. Okay. I am how should we do this? Should we go through how do you want to do this? Should we go through the teams that were highest in tax since then and look at how they've done, or do we want to go do it the other direction? In other words, go through playoff wins and see how much they taxed. Were taxed.
I would say let's start with, well, first let's do some housekeeping because everybody doesn't have this chart in front of them. So let's eliminate the teams that have never paid tax at all. And then maybe we look at the highest tax paying teams. And I do want to go category by category and let everyone know where the Heat ranks, because I think that's what people will be, I think, surprised by, but also pissed off at us for identifying. But just so everyone's clear, the Indiana Pacers, Atlanta Hawks, Orlando Magic, Sacramento Kings, Charlotte Hornets, Detroit Pistons have never paid the luxury tax. So that's very interesting. There's only really Indiana with 51 playoff wins that has anything to show for it. So I think it's important to distinguish those teams that never pay the tax. They always want the distribution that comes with not paying the tax, because basically the tax dollars are then evenly distributed back to the non-tax paying teams. They rely upon that. I know, like in Indiana, that's like a line item that they rely upon, that distribution back to them every single year. So that's first. If we look at the teams that have paid the most tax.
Actually, Greg, before you get to that, just want to let's stay on the not paying much tax line now that we're here. You mentioned Indiana. And by the way, there is an indication that they're willing to pay tax going forward, but they never have. They may need to retain Miles Turner. So not only have they gotten 51 playoff wins and have a 53.4% winning percentage, so they've been above average on the court, and now they have a chance to go to the finals tonight without paying tax, but they're also going to get money back from the league. Okay, so just to be clear on that. The only other team that has any significant playoff wins without paying any tax at all is, I guess, the Hawks would be second best. They've got 34 playoff wins. But I want to include a couple of other teams here because there are also some that have paid very little tax.
That's a good point.
Two others that have paid very little tax are Memphis, which has paid $219,000, which is a rounding error.
In 1 year.
They have 31 playoff wins and at 55%. So they've managed things pretty well, all things considered. And the other one would be the Pelicans, who have not managed things quite so well. They're under $1 million in total tax. They have 7 playoff wins and they have a 41% winning percentage. So of the teams that have paid under $1 million in tax, there are 3 teams that are plus 500. The Hawks are, because they're the Hawks, they're literally at 50%, 50.1%. Okay. And then the Pacers at 53.4 and the Grizzlies at 55.3. So if you're trying to draw a conclusion saying paying no tax, you're definitely going to suck. Well, that's not been true for those 3 teams, but also there are some bad teams in there. The Kings are under 40% winning percentage. The Magic have been under 40% winning percentage, although better lately. The Pistons are under 40% winning percentage, although better lately. The Pelicans are 41%. So there seems to be some correlation between not paying tax and not being very good, but there also are franchises in Indiana and Memphis who have shown you can be competitive and not pay the tax. Okay, so we've covered those. Now go to the top end ones.
And when you say competitive, I just want everyone to understand that if the Indiana Pacers punch their ticket to the NBA Finals tonight, as we're recording this, it will be 25 years since they last played in the finals. So just when we talk about them not paying the tax and being relatively successful, let's also keep that in perspective as well. Now we pivot to the top taxpayers. Is that what you want to do next?
Yeah, look at the top taxpayers and how they've done.
So this is
my God, Golden State. My God,
Golden State So this is where I'll actually integrate some of the rankings here. Golden State's paid almost $750 million in tax. They're the one team that when you look at win percentage, they're at 61.4. That's the highest winning percentage since 2012. Playoff wins, 113. Most playoff wins. They have the most titles, most tax years at 8. And 750 million is what it cost them above their overall payroll, mind you. But for them, you have to say it's paid off.
It has paid off, and that's very, very fair. And they're going to do it again, by the way, with Jimmy's contract and Steph and Draymond. But you also can say that some of this is a result of the success, because what happens is you're paying players to have success, but then you're keeping players because you've had success, right? So it's a little bit of both. But it is hard to argue. Like, I think if you went to most owners and to most fans and you said, listen, you're going to pay $750 million in tax, but you're going to win the most championships since 2012, which is 4. You're going to have 113 playoff wins, which, by the way, is 15 more than anyone else. The Celtics would be second, right?
Yeah.
And then
there's a huge drop after the Miami Heat.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say. The team right after the Celtics is the Heat at 92. We'll get into their tax situation in a minute. But I think most people would look at it and say, okay, if you're going to have a 61.4% winning percentage, you're going to win 113 playoff games and 4 championships, then you'll take the 8 tax years and the $748 million if you have an owner who can handle that. Like, that's, and obviously fans are going to be in favor of that, but most organizations would probably take it because the value of the franchise. Plus, by the way, during that time, they got a big, beautiful building built in San Francisco. So, which increases franchise value. So there's a whole bunch of things that go into this. But the Warriors have made the deal with the devil, and it has paid off. There's no other way to look at it. Now, there may be a crash and burn after Steph retires, but they have tried to maximize Steph Curry's career. I'm not going to make any argument about that. They're the polar opposite of the Pacers, but yet the Pacers are still playing right now, and the Warriors are not. So in this particular year, it did not pay off. All right. So where do you want to go next? Well, let's look at the team that's second here, okay? And then we're going to look at the team that's third. So the team that's second, what is that logo? Am I losing my mind here?
That's the Clippers. They've paid over $400 million. So this is an interesting one. The Clippers, they have also, in this time since 2012, they've paid the second most luxury tax. They have the second highest win percentage at 60%, which one surprised me.
Stunned me.
But this is where it gets ugly for them. No titles, we know that. They only have 49 playoff wins to show for all that spending. 400 million in luxury tax. So that, I think, is how they spent the money, more than that they actually went out and spent that money, because to only have that many playoff wins and not to get a title out of it, that's tough. But again, they have the richest owner in the sport, I believe.
He's certainly up there. Ballmer. He bought it during this process. They also got a new arena built. So paid off there. They're no longer sharing what used to be Staples Center with the Lakers. Here's the thing about that, too. Not only do they only have 49 wins to show for it, they've basically handed OKC a dynasty. They traded OKC, the eventual MVP, and the second best player on the team was drafted with one of the picks that the Clippers gave him in Jalen Williams, and it's still going. So I think if you were to look at it and say, okay, it's not my money, it's Steve Ballmer's money, most fans would be like, all right, well, you won 60% of your games, but you've not got return on investment.
No. And you've already traded Paul.
They haven't even been in the finals, Greg.
Yeah.
They haven't even been in the finals. Like, it's not even that they haven't won a championship. They haven't even been in the finals. But here it gets worse. You ready? And this is why, again, I'm saying correlation is not causation. I know all this stuff, but like, just spending is not enough. The Brooklyn Nets has spent $349 million. They've won 18 playoff games? And they have a 44% winning percentage.
Yeah. None of that ranks high at all, just in case anyone was wondering.
Well, Greg, I mean, again, they've been worse than the Hawks.
It's unbelievable. Like, I actually, in looking at this and how much they've spent over their overall payroll, the fact that they haven't. I mean, has leadership changed there? Yes, it's had to have changed.
Sean
since
Marks is still in charge, though. Well, the team was sold. Wasn't it Prokhorov at the beginning of this, and then it's
I guess it was.
Josai?
Yes.
Okay,
but they've consistently spent. They're in a big market, but I mean, like, this is ugly because this means that this encapsulates when they put that Paul Pierce, Kevin Durant team together. Then it also
that was Garnett. So Pierce, Garnett, and then it also encapsulates Durant, Harden, and Kyrie. The other Kevin got Durant, but Durant was later.
But then the Durant James Harden era too. So they've kind of gone all in a few times, and they have absolutely nothing to show for it. They are the biggest example of basically completely overspending and having nothing to show for it in the entire league.
Again, the Pacers are an anomaly. Kevin Pritchard does such a good job there.
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at the Hawks, though. Like we mentioned them earlier, like the Hawks are known as this mediocre franchise. They've never paid tax, but they've won 50% of their games and won 34 playoff games. The Nets have spent $350 million in tax, and they've won 44% of their games and won 18 playoff games.
How about this? The Hawks have won 34 playoff games and have a 50% winning percentage with no luxury tax paid ever. Phoenix has only 27 playoff wins. That's less playoff wins than Atlanta. They are pretty high up the luxury tax list at $273 million. That puts them at 5th overall.
They're tied with the Lakers. They're tied with the Lakers, who, by the way, Greg, haven't fared a whole lot better, although they do have the one title to show for it. Correct. That's all that separates the Lakers from the Suns is the one title. But otherwise, since 2012, they're both in the top 5 in luxury tax spending. The Lakers have won 47% of their games. The Suns have won 45%. The Lakers have won just 33 playoff games. I don't want to bring the Heat into this yet because the whole second half of this episode is going to be the Heat. The Heat have won 3 times as many playoff games as the Lakers, roughly 3 times, nearly 4 times as many as the Suns. Okay.
Why did Damon Goran have to get hurt in 2020? Damn it.
Right. And the Heat have won 92 playoff games, which is more than the Suns, the Lakers, and the Nets combined. They've combined to win 78, okay? And those 3 teams have spent, this is top of my head, 550, roughly $900 million in luxury tax to win fewer playoff games than the Heat have won, spending $74 million. I think that's a good place for us to break and get into the Heat. Again, you're going to say we're carrying water here. We're really reading stats. I'm not saying that you don't pay tax when you need to, when you have the right team, okay? It makes sense to. Avoid the second aprons and everything else that's been introduced, which, by the way, was not in there in 2012. The new CBAs have made it progressively harder to put teams together. But, okay, so they've limited the vehicles that teams use because, look, the reality is GMs would do whatever they could if this wasn't put in place, okay, in most teams. So that's why this is put in place. I'm just trying to make the case that just spending does not guarantee anything. It not guaranteed it, but it facilitated it for the Warriors because they also had a generational player and they built smartly around him most of the time. And yet, you know what Warriors fans do on Twitter all day long, and I follow a ton of them because of the whole Jimmy thing? Complain. All they do is complain. They complain about Kerr. They complain about Lacob. They complain more than Heat fans. I did not think that was possible. Warriors fans are more spoiled than Heat fans, and half of them became Warriors fans a few years ago, and they used to be Laker fans. Okay, but it's unbelievable to see them complain when you see the amount of money that they spend and the fact that they actually got return on investment, whereas the Lakers have not, the Suns have not, the Clippers have not, and the Nets certainly have not. And the next team there, before we get to the next teams in terms of luxury tax spending are the Bucks, who do have a title to show for it, 49 playoff wins, the Celtics, who do have a title to show for it, and 98 playoff wins, which is slightly more than the Heat for second, and the Cavs, who have 1 title to show for it because of LeBron and 66 playoff wins, but they're only at 47% because they had lean years. Right. So I guess what we're looking at is some of these just spending is not enough. Your front office needs to know what the F they're doing. And that's the Warriors front office, typically under Bob Myers and now under Dunleavy, has done enough. and yet all I see is Warriors fans complaining about them. It's all I see. Anyway, let's get to our sponsor. You want to throw it up there, Water Cleanup of Florida. You can find it at WCUFL.com, your one-stop water and mold cleanup shop. Water Cleanup of Florida is your place to go if you've got a leak in your home, in your business. Get to them right away. Michael, Robert, their entire team. Also, we want to thank them for being a sponsor for so long. We appreciate them. Really, really, really good people. Definitely go to them. They got more than 200 5-star reviews on Google. Again, they're based in Boca, but they go all the way down to Monroe County. You see them in Fort Myers. They're in Orlando. Check out the Instagram account as well. Again, they're based in Boca, but you call them, they'll find a way to get out to you because they're checking out damage assessment. They'll work with insurance agents as well. So check them out. Water Cleanup of Florida. It's WCUFL.com. If you got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
All right. So without going into the middle packet of all this stuff, all right, let's just get into where the Heat rank in all of these categories.
Yeah. So this is interesting. And shout out to NBA University. I would recommend everybody go to their account and check out this chart, see it for yourself, digest it. If you're on Off the Floor, you'll find it in host updates. Let's just look. I'm going to go left to right here, and we'll go through some of these categories. Win percentage. Golden State's first overall at 61. The Clippers we've talked about already at 60. OKC's third at 59.6. Mm-hmm. San Antonio, 59.8. The Miami Heat, fifth overall in win percentage at 58.5. So in all of this, they've paid, what did we say they were in luxury tax spending overall?
They were, I think you had, were they 9th, 10th?
They are 12th in total tax paid.
Okay.
And they're 5th in win percentage.
Okay. Well, that's return on investment.
Playoff
also,
wins. Let me do okay, go ahead.
Well, before you do, I want to mention one thing because people are going to forget this. Remember, they actually, oh, there you go. Did I hit that? They actually won a title. Again, this is before the tax stuff was thrown in, but they won a title in 11. So this doesn't even include that championship. We're just going from 2000. No, they didn't win a title.
No, they didn't.
I'm sorry.
That was
11,
that was
12
the Dallas
season.
Maverick year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I was thinking at the beginning of the season. Okay, so they won in the 12 season. So this would be the first title there. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
So the next thing to look at, so in win percentage, Miami's 5th. We've established that. And it was me who pushed the buttons wrong here for anybody who's watching on YouTube. Playoff wins. We talked about Golden State, return on investment, 113. Boston's at 98. Miami's at 3rd overall, 92 playoff wins. And you can't say that's all because of LeBron because they've had some pretty damn long runs pretty recently. And then this is what jumps out at me about this before we can kind of talk about this or move on to the next category. The next highest is Cleveland with 66. And we know that most of that's tied to LeBron. They're just starting to rack up non-LeBron playoff statistics. It's taken them a long time to get to that place. They're finally there. But the stark contrast from 92 to that next tier of playoff wins, Cleveland leading it at 66. There's a big difference between there. So Miami is definitely not at 113, but they're in that next tier with Boston in terms of playoff wins. And what more? I know Heat fans are asking for more, but truthfully, that is the ultimate sign of being competitive over a 13-year stretch.
And let's take a look at the Dallas Mavericks. I want to do a comp here because the Heat and the Mavericks have basically spent the same in luxury tax since 2012. Okay, so 74,189,772 for the Heat, 73,120,833 for the Mavericks. So essentially, it's a push. It's a wash. Okay. All right. So since that time, and Dallas is considered to be, Luka trade aside recently, one of the better franchises in the sport. Cuban ran the franchise for a long time. Now they're basically be run by somebody who's looking to probably move them and gut them and everything else. Okay. So. But that's where that is, all right? But obviously, Cuban was considered to be a good steward of the franchise. He brought that franchise back from nothing, whatever you think of his constant complaints about 2006, okay? The Heat, since then, as you mentioned, have won 58.5% of their games. The Mavericks have won 51.9%. The Heat have won 92 playoff games. The Mavericks have won 32. The Heat have won 2 championships. The Mavericks have not won one, although they did get to the finals with Luka. But of course, the Heat did get to the finals 2 times with Jimmy. So the finals appearances are still in the Heat's favor. And if you look at the tax years, the Heat have actually been in taxed more years, 6 compared to Dallas's 3, but the tax number has been the same. I'm really having a hard time, and then I'm going to drop down to one more. Okay, the Knicks, who obviously have turned things around under Leon Rose, right? Well, with Dolan as an owner, the Knicks have spent more in salary in tax than the Heat, 91 compared
almost
to
$20 million more.
Right. Their win percentage is 44.5. The Heat's is 58.5. The Heat have won 92 playoff games again. The Knicks have won 30. The Knicks have not been to the finals, and it doesn't appear they're going this year. We'll see. They still have an opportunity as we're recording this. I know. Okay. 4 tax years. And the Heat have had 6 tax years. So the Heat's tax years have been more minimized. They've kept it down. I think a lot of that is Andy's magic, honestly. But they've figured out a way to kind of keep it down in those particular years. I just don't know. And again, in the last 5 minutes of this, all right, because we're going to get accused of carrying water. I just don't know how, and I'm not, let me preface it by this. I don't agree with all the decisions that have been made in the past few years. People know that. They listen to this podcast. There are things there, and there are decisions I agreed with that haven't worked out, like trading a first-round pick for Terry and Lowry's contract for Terry Rozier. I liked that deal. You liked it at the time. It's a disaster. Okay. Do I think there were other things they could have done to maximize Jimmy? Yes. Do I think sometimes they need to move off their value in a trade? Yes. Okay. I'm not going to argue with fans about some of that stuff. But I do not know how there's a group of fans that is so myopic that they could look at a chart like this, although they won't read it, honestly. We're probably talking to the wrong crew here. And think that this organization has been mismanaged or has been cheap. Because you can't make a case for either. They haven't spent like the Warriors. No, they have not. Okay. They spent 1/10 in luxury tax as the Warriors, basically. But they have spent more than, as you said, 18 other teams, right?
Yeah, 12 in total tax paid. And when you look at tax years, Golden State, the Clippers, and the Lakers are at 8 years in the tax. Then there's Boston and Miami at 6. Oh, Brooklyn is also at 6. And then at Milwaukee's in 5 years, which has been kind of this most recent era. So if you look at kind of like those groupings, you've got 3 teams that have been in the tax 8 of these 13 years we're talking about. Boston and Miami have been in the tax for 6 of the 13.
Right. So, okay, there's 2 cases you cannot make here. Not if you're being intellectually honest, okay? The first case is that they're cheap. This doesn't indicate that. It doesn't indicate that they're the biggest spenders.
Nope.
So I'm not going to argue that. But it does not indicate that they're cheap. They've spent when appropriate, okay? Sometimes they've tried to overspend, like giving Caleb Martin that money last year would have been a disaster in retrospect, right? Okay. So they've spent to the upper third of the league or close to it, 12th, right? Okay. And then again, the luxury tax rules have changed over the time, so it's not exactly clear total salary, right? Like we can't really say that because the rules where the percentages and all that has changed over time. But you can't make that case. But the case you cannot make, okay? And if someone is making this case, I can't respect their opinion. I'm sorry. Is that they've been consistently mismanaged. Like you make the case they should spend more. If you want to do that, that's fine. Okay.
Or everybody how they've spent. If that's the other case you want to make, like paying Kyle Lowry when Jimmy asked for him, maybe you should have said, no, we're going in a different direction. He's not a fit from an attitude perspective, or spending on Duncan Robinson, or whatever people may want to bring up about the way that they've spent their money. All things we can hash out, and we have hashed out. But you can't say that they're like basically a team that sticks their head in the sand and doesn't manage the efficiently and doesn't get the most out of basically every vehicle that's available to them at this point. There was a point where we used to say they didn't care about the draft, but we can't even say that anymore because they hit on a lot of picks. So I just think it's good. People are going to say, you're right, we carry water, and I'm screaming at them to get off Pat's lawn and leave him alone. But for the most part, I just think that it's important to look at this and understand that what the data suggests is that the Heat are in the upper echelon of the way that they're managed. And so I think that they should get a little more grace about the way that they're going to figure this out going forward. And trust me, we're going to be hard on them if they don't figure it out. But I just think that they have exemplified what most, I mean, think of all the teams, and we're not going to go through them now, that would just, they would die to switch positions with Miami in the way that this is going.
Honestly, Greg, if I were in ownership, okay, never going to happen. But if I were in ownership and I was making a decision on my front office and my general manager and the people running things, I would literally just produce this chart. Because you can tell who's good at their jobs and who's not based on this. Like, for instance, the Raptors, okay, have spent only $25 million in luxury tax, but they've won 54% of their games, 46 playoff games, and a championship. The Spurs, okay, have spent only $9 million in luxury tax, but they've won 59.8% of their games, 62 playoff wins, and a championship. I know they've gotten some luck with
their
Wemby.
Third in win percentage, and they also have 63 playoff wins.
Right, and that's an owner who didn't spend to keep Harden, or else it would have gone even
5 tax years for them, just in case anybody's wondering.
And they're going to have to pay it now. There's no way to avoid it with the roster that they're putting together. They're going to pay tax. They may be able to stay under the second apron if they don't break up the team. I saw this. They may pay over the second apron like 1 year. But again, the overall point on this is, if you're looking at like I know Masai Ujiri is good at his job. That's the thing in Toronto. Now, do I agree with every decision that he's made? No. Is there frustration with him at times? But if I'm looking at this, I'm going to say I trust that guy. Okay. Whereas Morey, I don't understand where all the affection for him comes from, because if you look at what Philadelphia's done,
it's awful.
Right. I mean, they've spent, and he hasn't been there the whole time, obviously, but he contributed to Houston too. And looking at 38.9 million, 41 playoff wins, 45.7%. That's not return on investment. Again, I know it wasn't all him. It was Colangelo, it was Elton Brand, it was Hinkie before him. But I'm just saying, I don't. Just to be clear on this, both of us, because I think we agree on this part of it. We're not excusing everything that they've done. I don't like necessarily their position right now as much as I've liked their position in the past. We're going to do a podcast about what Zach Lowe said about how he has them at 8th in terms of their future in the East. And he, of course, and I was actually the one I respect most in NBA media, but he basically said, he acknowledged that he said they had the bleakest future in the NBA once before, and then they ended up in the finals.
He doesn't want to get caught in that same spot again.
No, so he's like, I'm not going to distrust them. But I think there's a difference here, okay, between glazing them or giving them too much credit, but doing what you said, which is giving them a little grace and trust. I think there is a distinction. I don't think we have to praise everything that's gone on lately.
Hell no.
No. But I do think when they make a decision not to extend Jimmy Butler, and then we see what happened in Golden State, and you're seeing he can't carry anymore. Do you understand? I know people say they should have traded him before. I know a lot of the backstory of all that. I just can tell you a lot of that people are wrong. But the idea that they don't know what they're doing and that they're cheap as hell, which are the two things that we're hearing the most this offseason. The cheap as hell thing is not true. Again, you can say that you want them to spend more. I understand that. You want them to be top 5. Okay. It's not my money. It's just somebody else could talk about what money they should spend. But the idea that they've lost their minds and they don't have, this does not suggest that. It doesn't suggest that. I'm sorry.
And they pay their coach
another pail here. Hey, that's why I'm saying, okay, give them some trust. Are they managing things as well as Bill Zito is managing the Panthers right now? No, because nobody in all of sports is.
He's on a heater, though.
Oh my God, is he on a heater? But here's the funny thing about that. Everybody around the NHL is he's only doing it because they got no state tax in Florida. That's the new thing, okay? Well, I mean, there's no state tax for the Dolphins either, and they're perennial embarrassment. So, it's about how you manage your situation, your assets, your money, the vehicles that you have, the people you put in charge. And I do have a modicum of trust in this group to figure it out because they've done this. And by the way, that doesn't even include the championship in 2006, the should have been finals in 2005, getting to the finals in 2011 before these CBAs came into effect, or the fact that they made the playoffs for 2 years with Dwayne and nothing else. before they brought everything in. So again, you guys can look at this. This is going to put this on Off the Floor. We're going to put it on Twitter. Make your arguments. We'll probably do a post pod on this over the next couple of days. Make your arguments for why they've been cheap and why they're total buffoons now that don't know what they're doing. Because I do think we have counters for those. And with that being said, if they F up this offseason, we will hold their feet to the effing fire. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.